He is the Edward R. Murrow Press Fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, also writes the Cosmopolitics newsletter on Substack. Elise, it's great to have you with us. In one of your most recent pieces, you said that President Trump, while supportive of the Netanyahu government, is demanding results, and Netanyahu, in your words, must choose between political survival and a historic legacy of regional peace. Put those two things on the table for us.
Well, I mean, as you know, Major, Prime Minister Netanyahu has spent the better part of a year avoiding the ceasefire deal and the choices that he's faced with right now, to the dismay of many of the hostage families and as well as many in the Israeli public. They've wanted him to make a deal. They've wanted to get those hostages home. And, you know, his far right-wing coalitions, particularly Ben Gvir and Smotrich, some of the most hardline right members of his coalition have said they'd leave the coalition if he went ahead. Now, Netanyahu did go ahead with this first phase of the deal, but the second phase of the deal is even trickier. And certainly it looks like if he were to go ahead, that his coalition will fall. But on the other hand, you do see with the amazing results that Israel itself has really extracted from the region, the weakening of Iran, the weakening of Hezbollah, of Hamas during the course of the war, the new opportunity in Syria with the fall of Bashar al-Assad. There's a new region. There's a kind of a new tectonic shifts that are shaping the region. And that's why President Trump thinks there is an opportunity to move ahead if there would be a Saudi normalization deal that the two men will be discussing today. There could be a chance for normalization between Israel and its Arab neighbors. And Benjamin Netanyahu really has to choose. Is he going to be the person that, you know, delivers peace to the region and perhaps a Palestinian state and lose his coalition? Or is he going to stay in the coalition and, you know, irk not only President Trump, but the Israelis themselves? Recent polling suggests that 60% of Israelis at least favor President Trump's attempts to get a deal done.
Elise, I know you listened closely to the president today talk at length about a big, beautiful piece of land somewhere, either Jordan or Egypt, where all the Palestinians who are in Gaza now could and should go if they had another option. Evaluate that in the context of what you just laid before the audience.
Well, Major, in theory, right, Gaza is uninhabitable right now. I mean, you see the destruction, you know, cameras have been following what's going on. But now that the Israelis are pulling out, we're going to really see the damage that's been done. And, you know, his envoy, Steve Witkoff, said if any of a U.S. state was being destroyed like that, we would see that it's uninhabitable. So that is true. But at the same time, Palestinians remember when they were pushed out of their land decades ago, which they called the Nakba, and they don't want to see that happen again. So Palestinians have right to fear that if they leave their land and would go to Egypt and Jordan, even if Egypt and Jordan would accept them, which they would not, which they have said that they would not, they have no guarantee of coming back. And it doesn't, you know, President Trump is not really clear about what he's saying. Is he saying, I'm going to ask Egypt and Jordan to go to the Sinai or to the Jordan Valley temporarily and build shelters for them so that they could come back to a big, beautiful Gaza with the condos and what everybody is talking about? He's not saying that. So between the lines, the Palestinians are fearing that if they were to leave, then the Israelis would take the land permanently. And I think that's where the rub is. I think we really have to hear more clarity from President Trump about what he's talking about. But that said, and we did hear that, you know, the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, will be coming next week, and he's going to voice strong opposition to President Trump's plan. I'm fairly sure from talking to diplomats and others in the region that Egypt and Jordan would not take Palestinians because Palestinians themselves don't want to leave. And really, there's nothing that President Trump can do to force them.
And to your point a moment ago, mentioning the interest that Saudi Arabia has, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, if there's this whole mass migration and there is no Palestinian state, by definition, if they're going to Egypt and Jordan, with a justifiable fear that that's permanent because that's what's happened to every Palestinian who's gone to Jordan or Egypt. They haven't come back, haven't been welcomed back. Then there's no Palestinian state. It would be hard to imagine a scenario in which the Saudis would say, yes, that's the perfect opportunity to normalize relations with Israel.
Look, I think Mohammed bin Salman has come a long way in terms of his willingness to get a deal with Israel, and he is willing to make some compromises on what the future Palestinian state would look like. But certainly he's not going to take a deal with Israel on these conditions. And that's why I go back to the idea that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to have to make some very tough decisions about what he wants. Does he want peace with the region? Does he want Israel's integration in the region, including Saudi Arabia, which is not just about national security and all of that. It's also about economic integration. The Middle East could really become a center of the global economy if there were to be a deal. Or does he want to hold on to this fantasy that Israeli settlers are going to live by the sea in Gaza? I think that that's not going to happen, and it's just furthering his alienation from the international community. Again, I think it would damage his relationship with Trump, and certainly no deal would be with Saudi Arabia on the cards.
Very well stated. Elise Labott, thank you very much for your time and expertise. Appreciate it.